What a pleasure it is to be here with you. I'm sitting over there thinking back to the 1980s. We had our annual meeting at White Oak. Scott, Carolyn, Greg, I see a few of them back in the old days. After we had our meeting, we passed a hat and hoped we got enough change that we could notify you by letter we was going to have a meeting next year. And we have come a long, long way. And gosh, it's unbelievable. I have several things that I'd like to talk to you about, and I could keep you here the rest of the day, but I'm not. I'm very glad to hear them talk about that recording studio because I want to go out there and I want to record some things. And I'm almost 90 years old, and I started back working with the tribes up in the Miami area in the late 60s and early 70s, and I knew all those old tribal leaders, and they were great people. But surprisingly enough, 5 of the tribes in Ottawa County were terminated. They weren't even, they discontinued them. Congress pulled all their recognition. And thanks to Ed Edmondson, congressman from Muskogee, they were reinstated and are very active today. And that Intertribal Council up there is a great, great organization. And I was very proud to be a part of that. And as a young man, I was invited, but I finally found out why I was invited. I had a secretary and a typewriter. They didn't have anything else. And the tribal office was the trunk of the chief's car. They had absolutely nothing. And as you go up there today and see that, I'm just utterly amazed by the progress that's been made. Having said that, I think back about late 60s. I think about River Spirit Casino down at Tulsa. Think about that. What a big project that is. The chief of the tribe at that time was a guy, he was a friend of my dad's, was named Dode McIntosh. He worked at a lumber yard in Miami. They had nothing. And look what's out there today. People, it's unbelievable. And I am very, very glad to have been a part of that. But there's something I want to tell you today that I want to share with you that I was sworn to secrecy about 20-some years ago, is how we got our federal recognition. What a venture that was. I want to start back in the 80s with Wilma Mankiller and that council, on up through the 90s, and we worked with them. And we finally got permission to leave Cherokee Nation if we took nothing with us. And we agreed to that, and we did. We left. We got a bill introduced in Congress, and it passed the House of Representatives. But it got hung up on the Senate side, and we could not get that bill passed. And we had Ross Swimmer working on it. Greg Pitcher sitting right over there. He's very, very familiar with what I'm saying. And we are really hung up. And he cannot get that. The bill went to the Senate Indian Affairs Committee, and before they will pass our bill, they want a letter from the Bureau of Indian Affairs saying it's okay for us to become a federally recognized tribe. We can't get it. We've tried everything. Bill Clinton is going out of office, and Congress is getting ready to adjourn. And this is the part that I want to tell you that's almost unbelievable. I'm sitting at McDonald's drinking a cup of coffee, and I look down there, and in Oklahoma City, they've had a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton as she's running for the Senate in the state of New York. Well, having been involved in the Oklahoma Indian Affairs Commission and some of the other committees down there, I got acquainted with the state senator by the name of Bob Cullison. Some of you may know him. I know the Bird Creek Shawnees probably know him because he was their state senator. Bob and I became friends, and he was a great, great guy. So I'm sitting there drinking that coffee, and I'm looking at this fundraising venture for Hillary. And so I take my phone and I call Bob, and I said, "Bob, you read the Tulsa World today?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Boy, they raised a bunch of money for Hillary, didn't they?" And he said, "Yeah, they did." I said, "Do any of they named who they were and everything?" I said, "Do any of those people owe you a favor?" And he said, "Well, Ron, every one of them owes me a favor." I said, "Well, can I have one of them?" He said, "What are you talking about?" So I said, "Well, we need a letter from the Bureau." He stopped me. He said, "Ron, I don't have a clue what you're talking about." He said, "Let me make a couple of phone calls and I'll call you back." So sure enough, my friend Bob, 30 minutes, an hour, my phone rang. He said, "You be home tonight, you're going to get a phone call." So I stayed home. Excuse me. I stayed home. It was a Monday night. Reason I remember that because it was a council meeting night, and I called the council and said, "I won't be there. I've got to stay home." Sure enough, I got home that night, phone rang. It was the ex-governor of Oklahoma calling me. He said, "We owe Bob Cullison some favors, and I understand you're needing a letter." And he said, so I went into detail. I need a letter from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to the Senate Indian Affairs Committee saying it's okay for the Shawnee tribe to be recognized. So he said, "Okay." He said, "You must understand we haven't talked, and I'd rather you not say anything about it." So I've honored that for 25 years, but today I'm telling the story. And anyway, that's on a Monday. Tuesday about noon, I get a call from Ross Swimmer. He said, "Who in the world do you know?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, that letter came from the Bureau over to the Indian Affairs Committee." He said, "I don't know who in the world they done it or who got it done. But then," he said, "they've got the letter, and I think they're going to pass our bill before they adjourn." And next day, Ronnie Froman, who was the chief of the Peoria tribe, had a wire service that afternoon, called me, and he says, "Congratulations, you're a federally recognized tribe." And so I guess if you really want to look at it, we can thank Hillary Clinton because she had the fundraiser in Oklahoma City. That's not really true, but it makes a good story anyway. But anyway, I want to visit that recording house that Chief Barnes talked about because I want to record all this in more detail. Like I said, I could keep you here all day. But anyway, our tribe has done so good, and I can't thank this leadership and the staff enough. And I'm just amazed, and I am so honored to be your ambassador. It is really an honor, and I don't know who made that suggestion or made that position, but I am really honored to be that. Let me share one other thing with you. It'll take 3 or 4 minutes here, but I want to tell it. How we got our property in trust out in Guyman, Oklahoma. After meeting, I met with Governor Anatubby of the Chickasaws, and of course, I had worked with him on some state projects, and he and we just developed a good friendship, a good trusting friendship. And I really thank the world of the Chickasaw Nation and Governor Anatubby and his staff, especially Bill Lance. But anyway, we decide we're going to buy some land out at Guyman, and we're going to put it into trust. Well, any of you that's worked on the land into trust, that is quite a lengthy project. It's just a long, long haul, and I was dreading it, quite frankly. But I'm going to tell you how friendships, I told you about my friendship with Mr. Cullison. I'll tell you about my other friendships that started. We go to the Muskogee, we are assigned to the Muskogee area office. That's where the Shawnee tribe does their business. But being that land is in Guyman, they have sent that project to Anadarko. It's got to go through the Anadarko area office. And of course, there's several tribes out there that are under the Anadarko office. Well, I get in my pickup and I go to Anadarko. Had a very cool reception. They really didn't want us out there. And I thought, boy, this is going to be tough because, and I was thinking about the Seneca Cayugas that tried to put a piece of land in trust in upstate New York. They spent 3 years and over $2 million and got nothing out of it. Well, we didn't have the money, but we needed all the help we could get. But anyway, I go out there and I visit with those people, and I kept trying to get a better feel established. And having, this is going to be jumping a little bit, but having been in the Army, I got acquainted with, in the 45th Infantry anyway, I got acquainted with Tom Walker, who was a general in the 45th, and he became a friend of mine. And so he worked somewhat, he was an attorney, and he worked with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so one day we were having a beverage, and he asked me, he said, how's your project going? And I told him about that cool reception I was receiving at Anadarko. And he said, well, wait a minute. He said, I had a classmate in college that is assigned, he's the second in command out there. I said, really? I said, yeah. I said, boy, that'd be great, you know. I said, I wish you could help us. Well, unbeknownst to me, about a week later, I get a copy of a letter that he has sent to his friend. And he is very complimentary about the Shawnee tribe, what we're trying to do. And as a friend, he asked him to help us. And he stated in that letter that he had no dog in the fight. He wasn't getting anything out of it, but he wanted them to help us. Lo and behold, our projects just started going through real quick, and it tickled to death the way that man helped us. It was a complete turnaround simply because of that letter and my friendship with him. And we go on, of course, all of you may or may not know, everything the Bureau does has to go through the solicitor's office, which is the legal branch that they have to approve everything. Well, the solicitors were in Tulsa. So I asked to have a meeting with those solicitors, and what I really wanted to say, come on, we got to speed this thing up, but you can't do that. So they met with me, and we had a great meeting. And what really set that meeting off is one of those solicitors, I knew his dad, and he immediately started helping us. Long story short, strictly through friendships. Friendships are great. We got the land, we got everything approved. And we're ready for Governor Fallon. She has to sign off on this. I'm going to mention one guy's name. He worked on her staff. His name is Preston Dorfinger. I doubt if any of you have ever heard of him. But he and I we had a mutual friend, and he stood the ground for us. Governor Fallon was wanting to back out and not sign that land into trust. Long story short, he kept her wired up to the Shawnee tribe to approve that project. We finally got it done, and the Secretary Zinke, who was the Secretary of the Interior, he's not Secretary of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, he's Secretary of the Interior. He had a guy tell him not to sign off on the Shawnees out at Guyman, Oklahoma. Secretary Zinke is an ex-Marine, and as he told me, he says, nobody tells me what to do or not do. Lo and behold, he got on a plane, came to Oklahoma City, and we signed that in 2 days. And the letter is posted in the office up at the tribal building, and I hope you go up there and read it. So I've hit the top parts of all of this, and I would like to record more in detail of what really went on. But all I want to say is I am so proud of this tribe and everything that they're done, and the leadership that we have and the staff that we have, and as you as general council members make it even greater. And I want to say this one thing. Let's continue to grow, okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you.